Death on the Nile is of course based on the 1937 novel by Agatha Christie, a Hercule Poirot murder mystery story. I have to say I'm a sucker for murder mysteries, and I always enjoyed the David Suchet version of Poirot. My mother was a big fan of the TV series and the books, so I grew up with Poirot on the television quite a lot. Kenneth Branagh plays the role in this film, which is a sequel to the 2017 adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express. He directed both films also. It took a little bit of an adjustment to get used to Branagh in the role rather than Suchet, but I really like Branagh's interpretation. Different from Suchet's take, but still recognisably Poirot in his own right. And I have to say, credit where credit is due, because Branagh really does bring a strong sense of gravitas and charisma to the character of Poirot, capturing the character's whimsical and sometimes humorous idiosyncrasies, while also brilliantly portraying his serious intellectual genius. This film is a throwback to the whodunit murder mystery period-based classics, where a large ensemble cast of colourful characters are stuck in one primary location, in this case a boat, and they are all possible suspects in a murder investigation, which only Poirot's brilliant deductive reasoning skills can solve. So, structurally, it's quite similar to Murder on the Orient Express, although it's not quite as endearing or emotionally compelling as that story, I think. I won't offer major spoilers for this film, but the 2017 version of Orient Express was very well executed. It had a charm and genuine sense of intrigue. Death on the Nile offers much the same thing again, although it doesn't make quite the same impact as the first film. In addition to Branagh, the cast is fronted by Gal Gadot, Tom Bateman, Annette Bening, Ali Fazal, Jennifer Saunders, Dawn French, Letitia Wright, Sophie Okonedo, Emma Mackey, Russell Brand, and Armie Hammer. It begins by giving us a backstory into a young Hercule Poirot during the First World War, where he helps his regiment to come up with a plan of action to advance on the enemy, but they walk into a trap and his superior officer is killed and Poirot is left with severe scars on his face, which his fiancée suggests could be covered if he were to grow a moustache. I found this quite an unnecessary and contrived moment in the film. The idea that an explanation was needed for Poirot's moustache is just rather silly, but whatever. In this film we get a bit more of an insight into his character, that he's a bit more tortured by a lost love from his past. The central plot revolves around Poirot and several other guests being invited to join a honeymoon vacation in Egypt of the newlyweds Lynette Ridgway and Simon Doyle. Simon had previously been engaged to Jacqueline de Belfort, and when they broke up, she became Simon's obsessed stalker, refusing to leave Lynette and Simon alone, constantly showing up whenever they were out in public, always tracking them down somehow. How she does this is beginning to drive Lynette crazy. Suffice to say, Lynette fears for her safety, but in addition to Jacqueline, she has concerns about the other people on board their cruise ship. She doesn't trust them. Well, I'm not going to get into much more detail plot-wise because, well, I don't want to ruin the surprise for you. Suffice to say, for this to be a murder mystery story, there has to be a murder that takes place. Poirot must interview everyone on board because they're all possible suspects. He must attempt to unravel the various interpersonal relationships and ways in which the passengers' histories connect with the victim to discover motives, past grievances, conflicts of interest and jealousies. There's plenty of traditional murder mystery twists and turns, as you would imagine, leading to a satisfying conclusion. The performances are wonderful, the film is beautifully shot and directed, the pacing is good, and the soundtrack is very memorable. And from a cinematography perspective, it's a visually nice film to look at. I felt at times that the character of Poirot was taking a little bit of a back seat to some of the other main characters, and the story takes quite a bit of time to really get going. Now, I'm not a fan of the very end of the film, as in the last scene. I thought it was a little bit silly, and again, it concerns his mustache. Spoiler alert. The scenes seemed a little bit unnecessary. Also, much like the first film, there's far too much fairly obvious compositing work and CGI, which, for a second, kind of takes you out of the experience a little bit. You know the actors are standing against a green screen, and the background is CGI in a few scenes. The film was not a huge commercial success at the box office, but a sequel is still planned. Some minor complaints aside, I can recommend Death on the Nile. I think it's a good film and it's genuinely worth watching. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you'd like to see more of these kind of short reviews, let me know in the comment section below. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.